2017 CF 15684, State v. Nelson, back from our recess. Ms. Hicks, is the state ready to proceed? Ms. Berg, is the state ready to proceed? All right. Mr. Lahr, defense?
Yeah.
Mr. Nelson, you ready? All right, let's bring in the jury, please. Ms. Berg, does the state acknowledge the jury?
Yes, Your
Mr. Lahr, defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ms. Berg, please call the next witness for the state.
Your Honor, the state would call Scott King.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
It's S-C-O-T-T, Scott, last name K-I-N-G, King.
Thank you. Ms. Burdick?
Thank you. Mr. King, do you live and work here in Central Florida?
Yes,
All right. And did you live here back in September of 2017?
yes,
If I may approach the witness, Your Honor.
Yes.
I'm going to show you a series of ATM stills introduced into evidence as states 18, 19, 20, and 22. Have you take a look at those. Back on September 29th of 2017, did you see information put out to the public by the Winter Park Police Department of this individual using an ATM machine in connection with the disappearance of a woman by the name of Jennifer Fulford?
yes,
Right. And upon seeing those images, did you determine that you knew who was in the picture?
yes, I did.
The name, who was the person in the picture that you knew?
Scott Nelson?
Right. Do you see Mr. Nelson in the courtroom?
Yes, he's sitting right over there.
All right. Can you describe what he's wearing so we know we're speaking about the same individual?
Black suit with a tie, no white shirt,
All right.
glasses.
The record will note that he's identified the defendant. After reviewing that information, did you contact the Winter Park Police Department and let them know that you believed that you knew who the individual was in the ATM photograph?
Yes,
All right. I have no other questions of the witness, Your Honor.
And no question, Your Honor.
All right, sir, you can step down. Ms. Burdick, please call the next witness for the state.
Tim Volkerson.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Sir, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
First name is Timothy, Timothy. Last name is Volkerson, Volkerson.
Thank you. Ms. Burdick?
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon. Please tell the court and the members of the jury your occupation, sir.
I'm a police officer at the Winter Park Police Department. My current rank is lieutenant, and I'm assigned to the investigations division.
Did you have that same rank back in September of 2017?
I did. I was a lieutenant and same assignment in charge of investigations.
Did you become aware on September 27th of 2017 that there was an investigation being conducted by patrol officers of the Winter Park Police regarding the potential disappearance of a woman by the name of Jennifer Fulford?
Yes, I was notified at approximately 9 p.m. by the road supervisor, Sergeant Tom Panicki.
All right, I'll sustain the objection.
All right. If at any point in time you need to refresh your recollection, please let me know. But as a matter of course, with the Winter Park Police Department, you will write a report, correct?
Correct.
Detailing
Sustain the objection to the form.
Do you write a report that details your involvement in a particular case?
I do.
All right, and is that report important so that you could remember specific dates and times of events that took place sometimes many years ago?
It is.
And did you, in fact, write a report regarding your involvement in this investigation back in September of 2017 at or near the time that the events took place?
I did.
All right. Now, you indicated that you were notified as the investigation supervisor by a patrol supervisor of the, at least the beginnings of the investigation into Ms. Fulford's disappearance.
Sergeant Tom Panicki was working road patrol that night, and at approximately 9 p.m. I was notified that they had a possible missing persons case on East Webster Avenue. At that time, I contacted the supervisor that works for me, Sergeant Lisa Supat, and notified her that patrol was working that investigation as I was involved with another investigation at that time.
All right. Now, are the notifications made as just to give you all a heads up that you may need to be involved, or is it to have you come, or the people that work for you come immediately to assist?
So anytime a patrol supervisor feels like they may need additional resources, they will contact either myself as the investigations lieutenant or the investigations sergeant, so we can bring in additional resources to help work cases.
Did you continue to monitor the situation throughout the rest of the evening on the 27th and then into the morning of the 28th?
I did. I ended up actually working most of the night that night, and after going home and going to bed, I was notified a short time later that the case was progressing and that they needed me to respond back into work.
Were you aware of the request that was made of Robert Fulford, the husband of Jennifer Fulford, to attempt to go to a Hyundai dealership to activate whatever sort of GPS system was on Jennifer Fulford's car?
Yes, I was aware of that request.
All right. At some point on 9/28/17, were you notified that, in fact, the system was able to locate the vehicle?
I was notified, I believe it was approximately maybe 11:30, 11:40 a.m. on the 28th, that the vehicle was showing in the 1400 block of East Colonial Drive. At that time, I responded to that area to try and locate Ms. Fulford's vehicle.
All right. Now, that is a location that is within the city limits of Orlando, not Winter Park.
Correct.
All right. Do you, as a matter of course, contact the city of Orlando prior to your responding? How did that progress?
Depends on the situation. I believe we notified them on the way out there, but if it's an emergent situation, we can notify them afterwards. That's up to our discretion.
When you went there, is this the Publix parking lot in Colonial Town?
Correct. I believe the address is 1400 East Colonial. If you're familiar with Colonial Mills, it's east of that intersection on Colonial Drive. It's Publix, and the parking lot butts right up to Colonial Drive.
When you responded there, did you have information regarding the make, model, year, and tag number of Ms. Fulford's vehicle?
I was aware of the make and model of the vehicle and also the color of the vehicle.
Right.
So when I arrived at the area, I began searching for a vehicle that matched that description. As I turned onto Colonial Drive and proceeded down towards the Publix is a fairly open parking lot, and in that area, it's really not all that common. Most of the businesses come right up to Colonial Drive, the building fronts. So that was an open parking lot. I turned in the parking lot. The vehicle was in the northwest corner of the parking lot. I noticed it was a silver Hyundai SUV, which matched Ms. Fulford.
Sustained.
All right. Once you arrived at that Publix location, did you locate a vehicle that matched the description that you were given?
I did.
Right. And what did you do in response?
Went to the rear of the vehicle, pulled up behind the vehicle, got the license plate off the vehicle. Over the radio, I provided that to our dispatchers, and the dispatchers, they run the license plate and confirmed that that was Mrs. Fulford's vehicle.
Did you go up to the vehicle at all?
I did.
Right. Were you able to see inside?
I believe you could partially see in the front of the vehicle. The rear of the vehicle had tint over it, so it wasn't a totally unobstructed view of the inside of the vehicle.
Were there any occupants that you could see?
There were no occupants in the vehicle.
Was the vehicle running?
The vehicle was not running.
At that time, did you touch the vehicle in any way to determine whether or not either door or all doors on that vehicle were locked or unlocked?
No, absolutely not. I did not touch the vehicle.
You said that the back portion of the vehicle was tinted. Were you able to see into the cargo area of the car?
You could see a little bit in the area, but because of the tint, you couldn't see detailed in the vehicle. We could see that there was possibly a blanket or a towel in the back of the vehicle, but I couldn't tell you any details from what was in the back of the vehicle because of the tint.
All right. Was there anything about the vehicle or an odor about the vehicle that would have led you to believe that Ms. Fulford's body might have been inside?
No.
May I approach the witness with what's been marked as states AH for identification? I've just shown it to counsel.
Yes.
I can have you take a look at this photograph. Does this show, without showing it to the jury yet,
Oops, sorry.
does this show the portion of the Publix parking lot where the vehicle was located?
Yes, ma'am. This is the northwest corner of that Publix parking lot.
Now, on this photograph is an area that is circled in red, and a vehicle is inside the circle. Did you take any photographs out there that day?
I did not take any photographs of where the vehicle was parked.
All right, so this photograph is not depicting the actual vehicle,
Correct.
correct? But is it accurately depicting the location
Yes.
of that vehicle?
Yes, that is the same parking spot that her vehicle was located in.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce AH for identification into evidence.
No objection.
Without objection, what's been marked for our identification states AH is admitted in evidence as State's Exhibit 25.
Permission to publish, Your Honor?
Granted.
Now, what I'm pointing to right there is the sign for the Publix.
Yes.
All right, and I had you talk about what was inside this circle, that not being Ms. Fulford's car. Is that the way that Ms. Fulford's car was parked
No,
when you found it?
That, the vehicle in the picture is backed into the parking spot. Mrs. Fulford's car was pulled in, nose forward, into the parking spot at the time I found it.
So once you located it and confirmed that it was in fact Mrs. Fulford's vehicle, what were the next steps that you took?
So the next thing I did was I notified a tow truck to respond to the area and tow the vehicle. We had the vehicle towed back to the Winter Park Police Department. We have an evidence processing bay that we towed the vehicle to and stored the vehicle.
I have no further questions for the witnesses.
Cross-examination?
When you showed up at the Publix on Shine and Colonial, did you have anybody else with you at that time?
No, I was riding in the vehicle by myself.
Did you contact anybody from the Orlando Police Department in order to assist you in that?
I do not believe I directly called them, no, sir.
Now, in a case where there's a missing person, there's always the possibility that there would be a homicide involved in it, right?
It's a possibility, yes, sir.
Okay, and you've never done prior to this case, ever done a homicide investigation?
Correct.
So when you arrived at that location, you said a moment ago that you contacted a towing company to come over and tow the vehicle, right?
Yes, sir.
Did you, at that point, prior to them towing it, have anybody come over to process the outside of the vehicle?
No, sir.
Did you have anybody come over to seal the outside of the doors?
No, sir.
Did you have any crime scene investigators come over to take pictures of the vehicle?
No, sir.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Redirect.
Lieutenant Volkerson, did you provide the tow truck driver with anything to prevent possible contamination by that individual of the vehicle?
Yes, ma'am. I provided latex gloves to the tow truck driver, knowing that the vehicle could be of evidentiary value. I requested that he put on latex gloves prior to hooking up the vehicle and towing it, which is a common practice when a vehicle is going to be processed for evidence.
All right. And did you say that you personally followed the vehicle back to the Winter Park Police Department?
Yes, ma'am. I was there in the parking lot while the vehicle was loaded up onto the tow truck. I followed directly behind the tow truck with the car on it all the way back to our evidence bay. I watched the vehicle be unloaded into our evidence bay.
And at that time, did you turn over the vehicle to one of your crime scene investigators?
Yes, ma'am. So once the vehicle is placed in the bay, it's a locked bay, and there's a prox card access to that bay. Our crime scene investigator, Ed Bigley, had the prox card that controlled access to that bay. So once the vehicle is loaded in that bay and the door shut, no one else can access that bay without authorization. So the custody of that vehicle went from me to our crime scene investigator at that time.
All right. Thank you. Nothing else, Your Honor.
Lieutenant, you can step down.
Your Honor, I would ask him to remain under subpoena for the duration of the trial in case we call him back.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Yes?
Thank you.
Well, hold on, sir. All right, Lieutenant, if you could just step outside the courtroom, right outside, and maybe some people contacting you there. Thank you. All right, Ms. Burdick, please call the next witness for the state.
Maynard Stevens.
Thank you.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Ma'am, please state and spell your first and last name for Madam Court Reporter.
Thank you. My name is Amanda Stevens, Amanda, last name Stephenens.
Thank you. Ms. Burdick.
Thank you. Would you please tell the court and the members of the jury how you are employed?
I work for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement here out of the Orlando office.
Do you have a particular position with FDLE?
Yes, my official title is a Senior Crime Intelligence Analyst 2.
What are the job responsibilities of somebody who holds the position that you do?
The job responsibilities can vary depending on what unit you're assigned to or what unit you're assigned to support. However, unlike our lab analysts, our job is to support our investigative function of FDLE. So we work hand in hand with our special agents on the investigation side of FDLE.
Do you have a particular assignment within the agency where you provide support?
Yes, I'm currently assigned to our electronic surveillance support team. It's a task force made up of ourselves as well as some other local agencies to aid any agency in our 9-county jurisdiction with any surveillance needs.
All right. And perhaps it's self-explanatory. The surveillance support team, what sort of work do you do?
My job in the task force is specifically in our cell analysis unit. So I specialize in the analysis and interpretation and mapping of cell phone records.
Right. Can you tell us what sort of education, training, or background you have that qualifies you to do that job for the Florida Department of Law Enforcement?
Sure. I have a 4-year degree from the University of Central Florida in criminal justice. And then since being employed by FDLE, I have close to 1,000 hours of classroom training. Close to 300 of that is specific to cell phone record analysis, interpretation, and mapping.
Right. Have you had the opportunity to testify as an expert witness in the area of cell phone record analysis and mapping?
Yes, I have.
Your Honor, at this point, I would tender the witness for voir dire.
Mr. Lahr? All right.
May I proceed?
Yes.
Okay. As a result of your employment with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, were you asked to assist in locating a missing female by the name of Jennifer Fulford?
Yes, I was.
How did you get involved in this?
The Winter Park Police Department requested assistance from my task force, my unit, and myself, along with one of our task force agents, went over to the police department and was part of a briefing to kind of get up to speed on the case and where they were at. And from that point, we went back to our office and then just began analyzing phone records related to people that were part of the investigation.
Did it become known to you that the Winter Park Police Department had requested a search warrant for cell phone records of Mrs. Fulford?
Yes, in fact, once that was signed, it was provided to my unit, and we sent it directly to the phone providers and handled the return of records as well.
Was it your understanding, based on the information provided by Robert Fulford, that his wife's cell phone number was 407-304-0401?
That's what I was told from the Winter Park Police Department, yes.
Was it determined that the cell phone provider was Verizon?
It was.
Right. And you indicated that once a warrant was obtained for Mrs. Fulford's cell phone records, it's the responsibility, or in this case, it was the responsibility of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement to then obtain those records.
Correct.
All right. Have you had the opportunity to see and review the records?
Yes, I have.
May I approach the witness?
Yes.
All right. I'm going to show you exhibits marked as states AE and AF for identification. Showing you first AE, is this a disc that you've had the opportunity to review prior to your coming into court?
Yes, ma'am.
And what does that disc contain?
It contains the record response from Verizon regarding the phone number 407-304-0401.
When Verizon responds to the request, do they provide a certificate of authenticity as well?
Yes, it's within the data that they send back.
And do you recall whether or not subscriber information for that number was also requested to confirm, in fact, that it was Ms. Fulford's assigned cellular telephone number?
Yes, we always request subscriber information.
Showing you AF. Is this another response under the warrant from Verizon?
Correct, it is.
And what is that?
It's a CD containing 2 cell tower lists that Verizon has, as well as the certification for that.
Have you had the opportunity to review what is on the disc?
I have.
Right, and what is it?
It's two lists of Verizon for the Orlando market and for the Tampa market where all of their cell towers are located.
Your Honor, at this time, I would seek to introduce A, B, and AF for identification and evidence.
Without objection, what's been marked for identification as states AE is admitted evidence as states 26, and what's been marked for identification as AF is admitted evidence as states Exhibit 27.
Now, since you were able to, how quickly were you able to obtain these records from Verizon?
We received them the same day that we sent the request into Verizon.
So since you were able to receive them so quickly, what sort of analysis are you able to do with records when you're not looking back weeks or months at a time, but almost instantaneous?
Well, there's multiple files contained when Verizon sends it back, so we were utilizing pretty much everything that they provide us to determine, is the device still powered on? Is it still talking to the network? If so, where it is? If not, where was it last? Who were the last communication? Pretty much anything at that point in the investigation, we were looking. We were helping identify who some of the last callers were. I was helping to kind of do a path of travel. Where was the device at? Where was was it known to have last been? Things of that nature. So at that point, we were kind of just looking at everything until we were able to give some further direction as to where we were going and what we were needed to focus on.
In a quick response case like that, is the goal an effort to determine the location of Ms. Fulford, hoping perhaps that she still has her cell phone on her?
Sustained.
Is that a goal? What is the goal of your getting this information so quickly from Verizon?
To determine where the device was, if the device is known to be in the victim's hands or in the suspect's hands, depending on what phone we're looking at, then where can we go to look for those people?
So once you have the record and you have an opportunity to analyze it, what information can you then provide to the law enforcement agency investigating the case?
So based on the records, I was able to create a map to kind of look at where the device had gone after the time frame that Winter Park had asked me to look at. So when they last knew she was still talking to people and wasn't really considered missing at a certain time frame, and then where the device had moved and the path of travel after that point to kind of give them a starting point as to where she may have gone, or at least where her device may have gone.
How is that accomplished?
Within the records, Verizon indicates to us what antennas are being utilized when you're making or receiving phone calls. There's also an additional file that's, if it's requested quick enough, is basically a network connection file. It's referred to as RTT, range to tower. But what it does is, as long as your phone is communicating with the network, then Verizon's going to say, this is where that device was. This is the antenna that it was talking to. So even in the event of someone not being on the phone, we still have some data as to where the device went. So since it was very quick, it was, I think, within 24 hours of her being reported missing, we were able to get all of that data from Verizon. And so we were able to utilize the antennas that Verizon was indicating on the record where she was.
Sustained.
Your Honor, may we approach?
Not on that particular issue.
All right. You said that Verizon provides data such as antenna information. How does that help you in creating a map as to where the device was?
Okay, so utilizing the tower list that's also provided by Verizon, we know where every antenna is physically located. So now if we know where the antennas are located and what antennas the device was in communication with, we can estimate an area where the device would have been.
And when you're talking about antennas, are you talking about what we might commonly think of as cell towers?
So the cell towers are the structures or cell sites, and the antennas are the physical RF emitter that's attached to the cell site. So we refer to them as either cell sites or the antenna specifically. But yes, so commonly referred to as towers.
All right. When you say RF, what do you mean?
Radio frequency, I apologize.
So how is it that you are able to determine the path of travel then using the antenna information on the cell tower?
When we combine the tower list with the records for the device, we're able to see what antenna is being utilized by the phone, whether it's in use or not, as long as it's powered on to the network. And so matching that up with the tower list from Verizon indicating where that tower is located, we now have an approximate area. It's not like an exact GPS, if you will, but it's an approximate area where that device would have to be in order for it to be in communication with the antenna that Verizon has told us that it is in communication with. So it's giving us a basic geographic area.
And so when you map all of the connections to the antennas on the cell towers, are you restricted in some way by the range of each of the antenna?
The range is not a definite. It's not even actually something that the cell phone company gives us because there's multiple factors involved. The population density of an area, building obstruction, things of that nature can always affect the range of an antenna. So we use an estimation when we're mapping, anyone in my office. And it seems to be something that we've tested over time, and it seems to be fairly accurate. So we're fine with that, but it's definitely not 100%. It's not a given. It would be nice if Verizon said this tower goes out this far, but it's not something that's provided. So we do an estimation, yes.
So in addition to any of the call data, Verizon also provided this connection with the network data. Do they also send any sort of text or photograph? Like if somebody texted, would that show up on the record that Verizon provides?
No, unfortunately, Verizon's call detail record is strictly for voice communications, so we don't see any text history in a Verizon file.
All right. You said that you were able to generate maps to assist law enforcement in determining very quickly where Ms. Fulford's device may be or where it was on September 27th of 2017, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
I may approach the witness, Your Honor, with
Yes.
what's been marked as AG for identification.
Go ahead.
I can show you this. Can you tell me
Thank you.
if that is a document that you prepared to explain which records you received, how you were able to analyze them, and ultimately map them?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Your Honor, at this point, I would seek to introduce AG for identification and evidence.
Without objection, what's been marked for identification as States AG is admitted in evidence as States Exhibit 28.
Permission to publish.
Granted.
Now, this is a multi-page document consisting of 14 pages, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
The cover sheet indicates what to us for the record?
In this case, it's just the phone number in question and the time frame, and the cellular path verbiage is just indicating that at this point, I'm looking at and utilizing the actual call records for the phone as opposed to the connection report. So this is a little bit earlier in the day when there was still some call activity on the device.
Moving to page 2. Let's start with the line at the very top, beginning with records 09, 27, 2017. If you can explain what the words at the top of the column mean.
Sure. So this is Verizon's LTE report. The device was utilizing Verizon's LTE market, so it looks a little bit different. However, this first column is record open date time, and you can see that there is a time conversion there. So this first column is indicating the date and time in the market that the device was being utilized, so here in the Eastern time.
You said something about a time conversion. Is that the Greenwich Mean Time, GMT?
Yeah, so it's indicating that it did a GMT -4 conversion. And you can see that here as well. From the second column back to the first column, it's indicating that that first column was already modified to be local time. The second column is how they keep their records. So record open date time GMT, that's how they standardize their records. And so this is basically their master date and time column, and they're converting it to our time for that first one.
All right, so this would be a call that was either made or received on the device at 7:49 a.m., 7:49:04 a.m.
Correct, Eastern time.
And then there are additional columns associated with the record, starting with cell face.
Correct.
Can you explain each of those to us?
So cell face is which side of the cell site is being utilized. Typically, the cell providers in this market, in the Central Florida region, utilize a three-sided cell layout. So each cell site or each cell tower is going to have three independent sectors or sides that would help cover the full 360 degrees of the area surrounding it. So this is just indicating to us which side of the antenna it's on.
Continuing with market ID.
The market ID is Verizon's numerical identification code for which market they're utilizing, and 145 represents Central Florida. So just by looking at that, we would know, yes, the device is in this area. If it was some other code, then we would say, hey, that phone's not even in Central Florida during that time frame. Where is that code telling us it is? But 145 is Verizon's code for the Central Florida market.
Continuing across the column.
The E and B ID is the eNode B ID. That's their LTE antenna number. And what they do is they combine the market. So the first three digits are your market. You'll see 145 again. And then the last three are which antenna number it's utilizing. So in this case, it's utilizing antenna 950 within the 145 or the Orlando, Central Florida market. So that's how they break down their LTE antenna ID numbers.
The next column.
The DIR, that stands for direction, and the MO is mobile originating. So in this case, that's telling us that the number of the record was the originator of the call. So in this, it would be an outgoing call, if you will.
Next column, starting MSISDN.
Is the mobile subscriber identity number, so the number of the record, whatever phone number we requested from Verizon. So in this case, you see it's the 407-304-0401 number.
And then called number, is this a number that was called by this number was called by this device?
Correct. So the called number is going to be the number that receives the call, who is the receiver. So in this case, it's this number ending in 7906. The next column, CPN, is calling party number. So it's indicating who was making the call. And since we know that it's a mobile originating, it would be the target number, the device in question.
And then the remainder of the columns.
Sure. The SOU is the time, and that's time in seconds.
Is that duration?
Duration, yes. Sorry, duration in seconds. The RAT tells us what type of antenna it's on, so LTE, which we know since it's the LTE file. The status is just indicating that it's successfully completed. and then the service request time again. So when the device was requesting to access the network.
So with that information, you are able to map an area where the device was at the time the call was made.
Correct.
So can you explain what we're looking at here?
Sure. So this map is going to represent basically all that data that was in that call record. So you can, I apologize. This blue icon here, as well as the blue icons kind of on other places on the page, represent all the Verizon cell sites in that area. So we can kind of get a feel for how dense that neighborhood is or that area is. And this is antenna 950. So we knew from our records that the device was utilizing antenna number 950 on the Central Florida market, and that it was utilizing side 1 because it told us what side of the cell it was on in the cell face column. So utilizing that information and matching it up with our tower list, we know this is where tower 950 is. We also know that side 1 is facing 0 degrees because the record in the tower list tells us that too, which direction each side of the cell site is facing. And then from there, we're going to represent it on a map. So if every cell site is 3 sides, 360 degrees divided into the 3 different sides is going to be 120 degrees. So when we draw it on a map, I'm going to represent it in a 120 degree pie wedge to give us a full 360 degree circle if you account for all 3 sides. But this one antenna that the device was using would be located here and facing 0 degrees, which is due north, and cover everything kind of in that direction outward.
And you have fixed a landmark within that pie-shaped entry on the map for Lake Highland Preparatory School.
Correct.
You also have another landmark here. Is this 1514 East Colonial Drive, your understanding of where Ms. Fulford's vehicle was ultimately located?
That's what we were told, yes.
So looking at the next page, does this continue to show the record of calls either made or received by Ms. Fulford's device on 9/27 of 2017?
Correct. This is the next section of activity for that device phone, still from the call record. So this is still while the device is either making or receiving voice calls.
And the record appears here at the top. Is it in reverse chronological order?
It is in reverse order. The file we get from Verizon is most current, then backwards. So when we screenshot them out for the record purposes, they do appear backwards.
Same information provided as we had previously discussed as to the number dialing or number dialed.
So this column is going to be the number that's receiving the call. So if it's her number, then it's an incoming. If it's a different number, then it would be her calling that number. And then this is the person who's calling. So in this case, all 5 of these calls are actually made by this device, except for this one right here, which would have been an incoming.
And so these are the times associated, so all outgoing calls except for the 11:30:59,
Correct.
and that was an incoming call.
Correct.
All right, you had earlier indicated that you can tell the duration of each call in seconds.
Correct. It's going to be this SOU column right here.
So the two on the top, the 11:30:59 and 11:33:43, one is a call from the device to this number,
Correct.
407-748-1548,
Correct.
20 seconds in length.
Exactly.
And then for the next call at 11:33:43. Is this a call?
It's now an outgoing call from the 304-0401 to the same number, 748-1548 for 12 seconds.
All right, so incoming and then outgoing.
Correct.
Now, these are all in the same market that you have indicated before, the Orlando market?
Correct.
Right. But they have different towers,
Sides of the same tower.
sides of the same tower?
Correct.
All right, so you have produced a map that has some landmarks associated with it as well, correct?
Correct.
Down here in the lower pie-shaped segment, you've listed as a dentist
Yes.
at 329 Park Avenue North.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then the house at 175 East Webster is this red dot, correct?
Yeah, the one further to the north. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so the device is using the same tower?
Correct. It's utilizing the same cell site, but different sides or different sectors of the same cell site.
Now, would this have been, this 11:33:43, the last call record on this device?
The last connected call record, so the last one that was answered, made or received and answered.
So as we move to the next page, you have another designator on this page, RTT path. Can you explain what that is?
So at this point in the records, this is when I had to take a look at the secondary file that Verizon sent for just the RTT, or referred to as range to tower. And what that is that connection estimation. And so Verizon is periodically checking out with the device, basically just saying, where are you? If you need to make a call or receive a call, where am I to send your information? And by doing that, it's creating a log. So we have a date and a time, no duration, no other calling numbers, because that's not what it is, but it's still indicating a date and a time and a location. Where is this device checking in? And so at that point, we're still able to kind of do the same thing as if it was a call, just there's,
Sustained.
What are you able to do with this information?
map it in the same way we map a call record, just there's no other call, there's not a call occurring.
So we're still on 9/27 of 2017, and then using military time there, 13:25, which is 1:25 p.m.
Correct?
to just after 2 p.m.
Correct.
Is there some significance to this time frame?
The 1325 is the time frame that we saw the device kind of start moving out of the general Winter Park area of the phone and kind of go in a new direction. And then the 1401 is the end of the record.
So based on the information that was being provided, were you able to locate where the device was as it continued basically to talk to the network?
Yes, based on the timing of the check-ins and how much time was either in between them, or if the device was utilizing the same cell site and sector for long periods of time, I developed a map basically for a search. Where are the best places to look for any kind of evidence based on the timing of the device?
All right, and if you could just orient us to this map that is now being displayed as page 5 of the exhibit records.
Sure. So this is going to be I-4 right here. This right here, you can see at the very tip is like 528. So you're south of there. This right here, this property is Disney. So you're down in that Disney area, kind of south. You've already driven through the Orlando downtown area. You've passed I-Drive area along I-4. And now you're coming into like the Disney area. So you have South International Drive where some of the outlets are, and then predominantly like the Disney area.
All right. And you have on the map over here in the bottom left-hand corner, Epcot Center.
Right, yeah, so you can see the Disney property right here.
So the, this map has several pie-shaped entries on it. Can you
Yes.
explain why you did it this way?
Looking at the records when I was analyzing the movement of the device in conjunction with the timing of the device, these two cell sites with the different sector activity were really the only time frames long enough where the device could have been stationary. So everything leading up to that, it was constant movement. The phone kept hitting off of a different antenna, a different side of a different tower completely. There was just a lot of movement. So it wasn't until the device got to this area and these two antennas specifically, where even though it looks like a lot on the map, there were definite areas where it could have been stationary and the timing could have allowed for that. So this is really the first time frame that it kind of gave us something to go on. Everything else would have been just constant movement of the device.
All right. So is there some time associated with these particular pie-shaped entries?
I believe they're on a subsequent page.
All right. So moving to page 7,
Correct.
this looks a bit different.
Yeah, so this is a zoomed in area and it relate.
What are we looking at?
This is one of those two areas of interest that were on the previous map. So you can see the file up here. It looks a little bit similar to the call file, some of the same information. However, it's a little bit different. There's no other phone numbers involved, things of that nature. But we're still getting the date and the time and a duration, the subscriber ID number that we're discussing, and then our towers, our market and our tower and what side of the tower was utilized for the phone. So we're still getting a lot of that same data. So looking at that, this is the area of overlap for these cell sites.
And this is the same military time that we talked about earlier in reverse chronological order, starting at 1:25:16, and then ending in 1:26:44.
Correct, so it's in reverse order, like the original file.
Moving to page 9 of the exhibit, this is the other zoomed-in area of interest based on the communication with the network that the device was making.
Correct, it is.
All right, and before we get to the area, this device had moved to this area at 1:34 and continued to be in the area through 1:51.
Correct.
Name the phone.
Is that correct? Explain the times that the device was in this area.
So the device was utilizing this cell site on both sides during this time frame, which is 13:34 or 1:34 p.m. through 13:51, which is 1:51 p.m.
Now, you provided an actual aerial photograph of that area.
Correct.
And this, can you tell us what the streets are in this area?
This is South Apopka Vineland Road, right here. And then this is Fenton Street.
Did the device move back away from that area after the last recorded entry that we discussed at 13:51.
Yes, beginning at 13:52 or 1:52 through 14:01, which is 2:01. The device then was back in the same area that it had been 20 minutes or so prior, in the general area of Winter Garden, Vineland, and Apopka Vineland, right here. So the same area that it had first piqued our interest was now kind of back on our radar based on the timing. A fairly significant amount of time, 9 minutes, which doesn't seem like much, but based on the pattern of the device, 9 minutes was a very long time for the device to be kind of in the same general area.
And then page 12 of the exhibit is the aerial
Correct.
photograph of that area.
So here's South Apopka Vineland again, and then this is Winter Garden Vineland, which is Palm Parkway on this side of the road, and Winter Garden Vineland Road on the west side of the road. And you can see parts of Disney property all right here.
Did the device leave that area?
Yes, it did continue back northward towards Orlando.
Can't really tell that from what we're looking at.
So looking at this, this was the area that we had been in previously, and now at 14:22, so approximately 20 minutes, 22 minutes later, the device starts utilizing the antennas that are all located along this roadway here, which is I-4. So you can see there's lots of antennas along the highway, but the device is checking in chronological order, here, 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 and then the last one is here.
So the last communication between this device, Ms. Fulford's, and the network was at 14:34 and 30 seconds?
I believe it actually went a little bit longer. Our area of interest for searching ended at 14:01 down in that Disney area, but the device stayed on for a little bit longer, headed back into the Orlando area. And I believe there's one more page that shows where it was.
This takes us all the way to nearly 3 o'clock.
Correct.
14:57:26.
Correct. And this is the last record of file for this device being on the network.
Can you tell from the record whether or not the device was powered down or if it simply ran out of battery life?
I cannot.
Can you just orient us to this map?
Sure.
And then we'll conclude.
So here's I-4 again, just kind of in the middle. Here's 408, the East Coast Expressway, kind of along the bottom in the green. And Highway 50, East Colonial, is right here, this yellow one that's right through the middle there.
I have no other questions of the witness. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Cross-examination?
You don't work for the Winter Park Police Department, am I correct in that?
Correct, I do not.
And what agency again do you work with?
Florida Department of Law Enforcement.
Okay, so you're occasionally called in to assist them?
Yes.
And in this particular day, time, what date were you requested to actually look these things up? As far as asking for the information and then getting it?
It was the day after she was reported missing, so
September 28th?
the 28th, correct.
Okay, and you said that you got the reports by the 29th?
I believe we got them the 28th, but I'm not 100% certain.
That's fine. Now, I suspect that you got the information, you didn't decide to wait to figure this out. You did it pretty much immediately, right?
Yes, my office started reviewing everything immediately.
And once you got the information, did you report back to Lieutenant Volkerson regarding the information that you found?
I don't recall who, if it was Detective Volkerson or Detective Sharon Wagner, but we did send the information back to Winter Park.
And when did you send that back?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
No further questions.
Redirect.
No redirect, Your Honor, thank you.
All right, ma'am, you can step down. Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Burris, please call the next witness for the state.
Your Honor, may we have a moment to set up?
Yes.
Actually, could we approach?
Sure.
Yes.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Hold on. Ms. Burris. All right, members of the jury, in just a moment, we're going to take a brief recess. During the recess, you are still going to leave your notepads and your pens here. During the recess, you're still under all the court's instructions, including but not limited to the instruction not to discuss this case amongst yourselves or with anyone else. Please follow the deputy in the jury room. We'll bring you back as quickly as we can. Thank you. All right. With respect to the camera that's present in the courtroom, who is in charge? Who's in the gallery? Who's in charge of the operation of the media's camera there?
I am, sir.
Okay. It's been brought to the court's attention. There's an allegation that the camera is being focused on the notepad that Mr. Nelson is using on counsel table. There have been a variety of people coming in from various media outlets operating the camera. I don't recall the people that are standing in front of me now, so I'm going to say to you what I've said to others, and that is that the camera cannot be directed at counsel table notepads by Mr. Nelson or his attorneys because that contains confidential and or work product material that is protected and cannot be disclosed. So I'm not making any findings. That's the allegation. We're going to move past it, but if the allegation comes back again, then I'm going to have an evidentiary hearing and take evidence. And since this is an order of the court, if I find that the order has been violated, then there could be a contempt proceeding. So I just want to give you that notification, just so you're aware. You may not have been aware before. We've had that issue arise with different media outlets, and I've always given them the same instruction, and after that, there's been no problem. So does everybody understand what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Thank you. And with respect to the video that we were discussing here at the bench?
I can bring it up to the bench to show the court.
That's fine. Counsel want to just maybe one attorney? All right, we're going to take a brief recess, and then we're going to bring the jury back in.